All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my weekly contributor interview series, Black Girl Magic Mondays. We had a few technical difficulties, but we did not let that stop us from being great. We are doing a pre-recording to bring it to you instead of live. So this is going to be just as good. I am here with my special guest, Dr. Shauna Patterson Stevens, Associate Vice Chancellor for the Office of Inclusion, Intercultural Relations, Clinical Assistant Professor at the University of Illinois.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest tonight. I appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule to join me. Just a little bit of history on Shauna and I. We both attended Central Michigan University undergrad together, and we met through OBU, the Organization for Black Unity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I was the treasurer of the organization. My brother was the president of the organization. Shauna, did you hold any board positions?
Yeah, I became secretary my first year.
Oh, okay.
When Chai was president.
Oh, how did I forget that?
And then after that, eventually I became president, but I think I might have been a dumpster fire. So I hope people got a good experience that year. I don't know though.
I'm sure it was great. But yeah, that was an organization on campus that brought a lot of Black students together. It wasn't a whole lot of us. And so that exactly what the title of the organization says. It unified the Black students. So I'm thankful that that we connected that way. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as the Vice Chancellor for the Office of Inclusion and Intercultural Relations and Clinical Associate Professor at the University of Illinois.
Yeah. Well, first, a little bit about me. I think it's obvious. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I went to Henry Ford High School and graduated valedictorian. I like to say that. Did I have 4.0? No, but I graduated valedictorian in 1999. And I have a family, of course. I have a little girl who's 14, so she's not so little anymore, and a 1-year-old. And I'm married to Charles Stevens, wonderful, wonderful man. I don't know where I would be without him. I come from a pretty big family too, so I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and we're kind of spread all over between the Midwest and the East Coast. But I recently moved back here to the Midwest from Massachusetts. I lived in the very middle of nowhere in Massachusetts. I took a job there because in my field, you have to move around. You can't just stay in one place. And so being pregnant, we decided we wanted to come closer to home. And we tried to find something in Michigan, but y'all know how it is right now. Like it's a little difficult to find jobs there, but we're still grateful to be here in Illinois. Like it actually set us up to be really close to family in like Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis, and Detroit. So we're actually, I think, in a more prime location to be able to see everybody. And yeah, we're happy to be back in the Midwest, and we hope to be back in Detroit as soon as possible. At the University of Illinois, some things that I do, I mean, the primary thing that I do is I work with the cultural centers and the resources centers. So that's ranging from the Asian American Cultural Center, the Bruce D. Nesbitt African American Cultural Center, to the LGBTERC, the Women's Resources Center, International Education. We also have something called Diversity Social Justice Education, and that's supposed to help people with sustained dialogue across difference. And I teach. So I do research, I teach, I write, and I am responsible for accruing grants on my campus. So broadly, those are some things that I do. But basically, I just work to make sure that we're creating safe spaces for people that are marginalized on our campus.
And when you say marginalized, just kind of go a little bit into that, like people of color or minority students. Okay.
Anybody who's been minoritized, people of color, it could be faith-based minorities, it could be ability or diverse abilities,
Hmm.
um, race, ethnicity, nationality. A lot of people don't realize that Native American, Indigenous, and Pacific Islanders, for example, some of them are sovereign citizens. So they're considered citizens of another nation and they go to US based institutions. So um, they're not necessarily, well, it depends on who you're talking to, but that could be a racial situation, it could be political, or it could be national, sovereign national citizenship issues. So there's just a lot of things happening there. And more recently, because of the current administration, supporting a lot of undocumented individuals and people that are seeking to retain their DACA status as well. So yeah, I
Oh,
mean, it runs the gamut. Mm-hmm.
right, right. So you help an array of different students. So tell us a little bit about the demographics there. Are there a lot of students of color? Are there a lot of Black students? No.
Well, no, unfortunately not. I've worked in the Big Ten sector for quite a number of years. Previously, I was at Michigan State, then I was at Penn State. I had a stint at Florida State before I came here to Illinois. And comparatively, if you even look at schools like Maryland or whatnot, like folks are able to figure out how to recruit and retain Black and Brown folks. Um,
Right.
Illinois has a really interesting international student population. We have 10,000 international students out of 50,000 students. Most of them come from China, so that's actually a really big deal. That's a big win because that's a very difficult task to maintain and address. But they've set up a really good structure here to support international students. Um,
International students.
Something that has been a struggle has been the recruitment and retention of Black and Brown students.
Okay.
And I say amongst the institutions I've worked at so far, comparatively, when we look at percentages, we could be doing better. That's something I'm actually working on right now. I'm currently in the process of finalizing a grant proposal to help create wraparound services from individuals who are in 8th grade through college graduation, specifically for areas within Illinois that aren't necessarily targeted. We spend a lot of time recruiting from Chicago, but it's very rare or hard rather for individuals that even live in Urbana-Champaign. We actually have a pretty diverse population here. It surprised me and it's rare to see our students in our high schools coming to this institution. So
Okay.
I want to try and find a different way to pipeline Black and Brown people here to this campus and be successful in it, recruit them
Right.
in a way where they actually feel supported, feel welcome, feel loved, feel like they're kind of magnified and mirrored in the curriculum and not just here to suffice a number, right? So
Right.
that's a big thing that I'm actually charged with right now.
Okay. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, when we talked yesterday, you spoke a little bit about some specific things that the university was doing with in relation to COVID testing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
about that, that's definitely special and something worth mentioning, especially right now with everything that's going on with COVID.
I spend a lot of time also on the COVID issue as well for a variety of reasons. One, I'm senior leadership, so I'm required to make decisions that can be impacting a student's experience. And so I have to sit in on a lot of these meetings, and I'm grateful because I try to filter as much information as possible to make sense of it. But right now, Illinois is leading the way in COVID-19 testing, and we're trying to focus on the rapid response rate of not just testing, but ensuring that we follow up with the folks that we test. We have developed the saliva test, and it's currently going through the CDC to be able to retain the ability to utilize this test nationwide. Right now, amongst all the tests taking place in the US, Illinois is responsible for 1% of the tests that are completed, which is a really big number. I mean, we have a college institution, right? Like
Right, that is
a US higher education institution taking the lead on testing in the US. I think that says a lot about our administration, but I'm not going to go there. I don't know if this is the space for that.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have a college leading the way instead of the CDC. That also speaks volumes to me.
Right. It definitely does.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
totally different, another conversation, but yeah, you're right. But that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
I think what that also means for our surrounding communities, though, I mean, a lot of people have been paying attention to the rates, I think, in Detroit, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, New York, being so close to Chicago, and having a sister institution in Chicago. It's really important that we nail this down because we recognize that it's such a big critical issue in Chicago.
Right.
And also recognize the negative impact that it's having on Black and brown communities in Chicago. So another impetus in leading force behind making sure we get this done and get it done correctly is because we need to support our communities in Chicago as well. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Yes, yes, doing big things there. So you talked about you being graduating from Henry Ford High School as a valedictorian. So how did DPS influence and help to shape you into the successful woman you are today?
You know, every really strong tree has amazing roots, right? And I know that DPS is part of my roots. That's what's made me into who I am. I'm still in contact with my teachers there. You know,
Really?
we're talking about, I don't know, almost 30 years later.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Right. Still connected. One of them walked me down the aisle when I got married.
Oh,
you know, like
wow.
This is how important my high school, specifically my high school experience was to me. I think that's where I really got a chance to delve into Blackness a little bit more, because it was the first time I was actually surrounded by predominantly Black student body. Prior to that, you know, my parents were in the military, so they moved us around a bit, and I was usually one of the few. So that was the first time I actually got to engage with the predominantly Black student population, and it was amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty much all Black. No,
yeah, it was. I mean, right. I mean, it was, but there was some diversity in terms of there were some white students there. There were some
Asian. Oh yeah, Henry Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
a few.
I stand corrected.
I mean, it was a small number, but they were there. Right. They were about it.
They had to be, right?
They had to be. But what I appreciated about Ford also is they really wanted us to be creative. They wanted us to reach deep. I think at the time, like, we were able to take advantage of those school rivalries a little bit more. So they actually were really thoughtful about engaging, I would say, community across institutions as well, right? Like we were rivals with Redford, but we were also like friends with Redford. I think we shared resources. They taught us the importance of building a network, you know, with relation to how we would engage other institutions within Detroit. I think the biggest thing for me was also like instilling a sense of pride in oneself and one's community. I think that at Ford, they did a really great job at connecting the students with the things that were happening in the community. And I mean, y'all have to think about this. I don't know if they still do this now, but this is at the time when the building is a square, and you could only get in one way and out one way, even though there were entrances across and around the building. They locked all the other doors. There were what are those things called? The monitors, the police and the metal detectors were at this one door. We had to wear clear backpacks and all this other stuff. Yeah. All this other stuff was happening there. We were having a hard time with heat. We were having a hard time with windows. It turns out there was some misappropriation of funds, which is why some of these things were happening. But even in the midst of all of that, right, like, we still found a way to concentrate on our studies. We found a way to be innovative. I had some of the most creative chemistry teachers at Henry Ford that I've ever had in my life. And that's even going to suburban institutions, like suburban schools, and having the top of the art, what is it called? The best of the best in terms of chemistry materials and supplies. Like, these teachers blew them out the water because they cared. Yeah. They were of the community, they were for the community, and I think that makes a big difference. And I think that shapes how I go about my life now, actually. Like, I won't take a job that won't let me do that. I think half the reason why I work so closely with cultural centers now is because I recognize the impact and the necessity of making sure that you are supporting the most marginalized individuals. If you're able to do that, then you're going to be successful as a nation, right?
Exactly.
I got that from Henry Ford. So I don't know. I think that my love for my people came from my time in high school. And if I had been in any other institution, I don't know if I would have had that same experience to the extent where it struck so deep for me, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I remember you, even at Central, you were a multicultural advisor, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So this has always just kind of been in you, and you've just kind of taken it to the next level until you've gotten to where you are now, which is amazing. But yeah, I remember that's always been a passion of yours.
Yeah. I did sociology. You know, I
I
sat
love
under,
sociology.
right.
Dr. Newby.
I always sat up under, like I still sit up under him, but like I was always in his face. I was always talking to Dr. Newby, doctors, newbies, right?
Right. His wife.
So yeah, a lot of that came though from it was grown at Henry Ford, and I just took it elsewhere, you know, past graduation. So yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So can you give us a preview of the story that you'll be sharing in the book, in the anthology?
I'm still trying to think through what I want to talk about, because I think I don't want it to be like this nerd girl story, you know, but I'm a nerd, so it might just.
I mean, yeah, we all had our struggles.
I think I'm going to talk about self-confidence though.
Most definitely.
And body image. I think, you know, I think with many people, like the time that you were in high school was probably your thinnest time, right? I was a twig, and I still had self-esteem and body issues.
Me too.
Right. And they still haunt me, but I want to talk about what that means to be a Black girl in a Black space with those kinds of issues, because and I think it's important to do that because I remember people, I don't know why this is coming to me right now, but like I remember the jokes in the hallway where people would talk about suicide, for example, and they would say, you know, well, Black people don't commit suicide. You know, we don't miss. We're going to go for another person before we go for ourselves. Like that was the kind of environment that we were living in where, you know, mental health and wellness was kind of trivialized. And it wasn't really acknowledged as a thing that Black people endured. That was a white person's issue.
Yes. Yeah.
And not realizing that was actually what it was that I was contending with at that time. I didn't have the vocabulary to talk about it. So I just didn't eat well. I didn't eat well. And I did a lot of activities that, you know, would work to ensure that I stayed thin. And so I took that mentality with me to college, which was something else. So I might go into detail a bit about that one because I think it's really important for young girls to understand and have an understanding of what that could actually lead to, but also how to, like, what words to use and what to call it, because it's a feeling that you don't necessarily know how to label, you know, if no one around you is talking about it. So
right. Yeah, mental health for Black people is actually really big right now. I know Charlemagne from the Breakfast Club is actually a real advocate, and he talks a lot about that, about what you were just saying, how we as Black people don't really look at it or address it or deal with it or whatever. And I think he wrote a book about it. So that's something that we all definitely, because everybody has some mental challenges and things that we can all talk to somebody about and deal with, and it shouldn't be looked at as a bad thing. So that would be a wonderful topic. Yeah, I can't wait to read more about it or whatever you may choose. I mean, you know, I know it's going to be good. It's going to be great. So, why did you feel it was important to be a part of or share your story in Black Girl Magic, the Detroit anthology?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, anything for Detroit. Like, honestly, anything for the D. To the extent where right now I'm creating a master plan on how I can buy as much. Look, this ignorant girl. Look at her. She's so ignorant. I can't stand cats. You can't tell me what to do. They get in your
Hey
space.
there.
So
Like,
anyway,
I'm in this interview. What's
with
up?
her resting bee face. Well, I mean, to the extent where like I'm really trying to figure out how can I block any moment where there's space to lead to additional gentrification in that city, right? Like I'm trying to figure out how I can buy up as much property as possible and give it back to the people. Like that's what I'm on right now. I'm looking at ways to pipeline funding back to Detroit and making sure that it's community focused, community centered, building up. Because I mean, it needed to be built up, but I mean, a lot of people don't realize like some of the things that led to the reasons why the property values went so low for a moment and why downtown was looking like it was. Like that was a concentrated effort to push property value down. So
Right.
like understanding what Detroit is to me, I'll do anything for Detroit. I'll do anything for Black girls. And so any girl that's in Detroit that's Black, you know, like I'm here to support her. I'm here to uplift her. And so
Yes.
what called me to this project was the idea of finding just another way to be connected to my community, to give back to my community, to give voice to the experiences coming out of that community. I don't know about y'all, but I travel a lot. And, you know, from time to time, people will say, oh, do you live here? And they'll ask you eventually where you're from because people are nosy.
Right.
So like sometimes I get into conversations with people about Detroit and everywhere I've gone so far, you know, Vegas, Philadelphia, California, they're like, oh, Detroit's on the up and up. And I'm like, there's this interesting dynamic happening in the nation where people aren't really hearing the stories, the authentic and genuine stories of people from Detroit,
Right.
Detroit. They have this glossy perspective of what's happening in Detroit based off of what they see in the news, right?
Right. Exactly. Right.
Magazine, right? So I think any way that we give lend a voice to authenticity coming out of Detroit, I see this as one of those pieces to lend to that movement. So that's what interested me in this project. I'm glad you put it together. I think it's really necessary. I think it's very timely and important.
It is. It's a great time for it. It's the perfect time for it.
Right. I think a lot of people like to make invisible Black women, Black girls. And any opportunity that we can have to make sure that we're countering that, I want to be a part of it. So.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Yep. For answering the call. Of course, because I asked you too.
But I'll say no if I don't listen. I'm quick to say no to something too, though. So.
Yeah. No, I feel you. But I wanted to talk too a little bit about Shauna and I actually had a bit of a situation a few weeks ago where we almost we're not friends anymore. And it's really important, I think, to touch on that and to talk about it is because it's different. I don't want to necessarily go into specifically what the topic was, but it's important that the way we handled the situation, it's not all in what you say, but it's how you say it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things can be misconstrued through text or social media. So it was like a status that somebody posted and we commented on it. We both were passionate about it. And it was just the way that things were stated. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't like that. And I reached out to her, I inboxed her, and then she didn't respond to me. And I was like, you know what? A lot of people don't do the inbox thing. I'm like, you know, maybe she doesn't get on her inbox. So I text her, mm-hmm. And she actually called me. And so I'm grateful that she called, and I was actually able to gain her as a contributor. So I don't know what your spill on it is or what you want to say about that whole situation, but I'm grateful that it came out the way it did.
Mm. No, I mean, we talk about this on the phone. I do think everything happens for a reason. I think it's been a few years since we've spoken, right? Like on the phone. I think we text each other. Happened. I think a lot of people do that now and they forget that they're not talking to people. So I think that's a problem in general, but I think there's a reason why we were supposed to be talking, you know, like actually talking to each other. And I don't know if that's made itself apparent yet, but sometimes conflict will make things stronger. And so I think what I got out of it was just like, well, first of all, y'all, I'm on Facebook like 4 times a month, maybe.
Yeah, you really aren't on there very much. You really aren't.
So it was really funny that this was one particular thread that I actually commented on, because I rarely even comment. Like I'll go to the things that I'm connected to, and then that's it. I log out and I go about my business. I don't have Messenger on my phone. I don't see Messenger unless I'm on a laptop. So I could see how all those things would make things spiral when those are the pieces that you do use. Like it looks like you're ignoring someone.
Right.
So like the biggest piece of all that is, Shauna, like this is actually like I my livelihood is to make sure people are able to connect and talk across misunderstandings. And so I said this to Tosh. I said, what I should have done in the first place was just pick up the phone, instead of commenting on a Facebook thread. And what I appreciated was, the willingness to answer my call. Like some people, it makes people feel anxious. Some people don't like, they're upset, they cut you loose. My grandfather said, once I quit you, I quit you. So, you could have easily just ignored my call and unfriended me. But I think.
Which I had done.
And I hadn't even noticed it because I wasn't on Facebook. But like, I just think, like hearing someone's tone, hearing someone's like cadence and understanding,
Yes.
I might have said the exact same words, but it would just been heard different because one, you could ask questions like, well, what did you mean by that?
Right.
And I think that's something that we're losing. I think that broadly, a lot of misunderstandings are taking place in this format on text, on Facebook, on group memes, all that stuff.
Most definitely.
And I don't think people are taking the time to like think through like what, like maybe the issue isn't the people, maybe the issue is the medium that you're using to communicate.
Exactly.
Going back to
that's exactly what it was.
Right. And just like, because when you were like, oh, that's what you meant, I was like, oh yeah, like I wish you well. Like I really do wish you well. Like I want you to be healthy and happy. Just like it could come off as snarky in a text message, but when you hear someone's voice, like, oh. So I think one thing that I'll remember to do from now on, like the moment I might be compelled to want to respond to someone on Facebook in the future, I'll just do what I typically do. Like I'll just pick up the phone and hope the person answers.
Right.
But I thought that, it was growth for us because I think, if any one of us, either of us had been a little less mature, it could have went far, far left. And I appreciate that you were willing to hear me out. And I think it's really important to be able to maintain friendships, even if there are moments where there are fundamental things you don't agree on. Like, I think that actually makes a friendship stronger because you have someone sharpening your sword.
Right.
You don't want to be surrounded by a whole bunch of people that think like you either. Like,
no,
I don't think that's productive. So
yeah, you have to be able to respect everyone's opinions, even if you may not, agree with them.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the type of people that we are. So
yeah,
that like I said, I was grateful and thankful that that everything, like you said, happens for a reason, and that it happened the way that it did. Because like I said, I'm like, oh my goodness, you want to be a contributor in my book? Like after we, got everything, we understood each other and all of that good stuff. Yeah, and then I was able to gain a contributor with a great story for my book. So everything happens when it's supposed to and for a reason. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
Yeah, me too. And I'm really excited about this book too. I'm excited about this project, and I want to see how DPS takes advantage of it.
Yeah. I'm hoping so. We'll see what happens. I'm hoping so. I got, like I said, I have a couple people that are involved from DPS. Like I said, the vice chair. So I'm hoping that might help it go to the next level. So we'll pray about it and continue to work and see what happens.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Shauna, for taking the time out. Like even with all the technical difficulties, everything, we still did the thing. We still got this thing done, and we're gonna get it posted. And a couple of other things. The deadline for submissions is September 10th. So that's approaching fast. So please, if you haven't, get your submissions to me by that date. Any questions or anything about your submission, please reach out to me, give me a call. I am still looking for a few more contributors. I'm only asking for about 1,500 words. 1,500 words is actually the minimum. So if you know somebody who wants to be a part of the project, who has a great story to tell, story to share. Actually, we all have great stories. It's just if you're willing and want to share it. So if you know somebody, please give them my information. Reach out to me, irvtashalyn@hotmail.com or irvtashalyn725@gmail.com. And of course, you can inbox me or comment below. So thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Black Girl Magic Monday. And we will see you on September 14th because Labor Day is next week. So we're going to take a break. So everyone have a great night. And thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you.